Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so very good morning, and we are into the 5th week of this course on strategic performance management, and this is the 3rd lecture of this performance management skill. And in this lecture, what we are going to talk about is that how coaching helps us to improve our performance. Before this lecture, we talked about some of the issues related to coaching, and we try to define how it is different from mentoring and other interventions. And as I told you that coaching is given to improve your performance on the current job, right, while other interventions could be different, right. For example, when we are talking about training, training is given to see that you are able to improve your performance on the job if there is a gap in the performance, that is your actual performance and expected performance or standard performance. If there is a gap, then there are certain options which can be done, like going for some kind of learning and development experiences to manage your performance. So, coaching as an intervention or what you call as a learning and development intervention has been very powerful for improving performance of the employees. Coaching is not only used to see that you are able to perform your job up to the standards or meeting the standards, but we can also look at it that how we can improve upon the existing performance, whether it is related to standard performance or not, right. So, in this lecture basically we are going to talk about how coaching can help us in improving performance. So, I will start it by discussing something like this. So, suppose this is what we call is your performance standard, right. So, when we are talking about performance standards, it is decided by manager and the employee. So, it is a joint activity, and when we say that it is decided by the management, and then if there is a gap in the performance, then this gap has to be filled with some kind of learning and development experience. So, what are the options? You have coaching, you have training, okay, you have mentoring. Okay. So, coaching, mentoring and training, there are different options that is available. Now, mentoring is not exactly about improving performance on the job, but mentoring is given to ensure that your personal and professional growth, right. Training to bridge the gap in the performance, and coaching is basically for improving the performance, right. So, when we are talking about coaching as such, the idea is that how we can go about improving the performance of individual through the coaching. So, the idea is that you are not going to meet only set standards which is decided or pre-specified or predetermined, but you are going to improve upon those set standards which has already been set by the management and the employee in consultation with each other, right. So, coaching has been used in a very powerful way in different fields, not only in organizational setup, but you also will find that coaching has been used in the sports and other areas very successfully, and it has been seen that how it is going to help you to improve your performance. Now, so what we are going to discuss here is that does it really help in improving performance, what kind of strategies to be adopted, how we are going to progress and the monitor that yes, it is helping in improving the performance, right. So, we will be discussing some of the issues here related to what you call coach improving performance. So, first of all we will talking about what kind of strategies to be adopted by everyone, all the stakeholders who are going to be part of this process of coaching. So, when we are going to decide about the coaching strategy, the idea is that see what is the action plan that has been decided by the management in consultation with the HR and others, right. So, to start with, first of all the management need to be convinced, okay, especially the top management is that is that how coaching is going to help in improving the performance of the employees, right. So, the concept of coaching has to be presented to the leadership in order to make them understand and be convinced about its contribution in improving performance, right. So, unless management is convinced about the credibility, unless they know that okay, how it is going to help you. So, you need to convince them by presenting this concept in such a sense that by giving certain examples of other companies or see that how companies have been successful in achieving higher performance through these kind of activities. So, there is a need to implement these kind of things in the organization, right. Then further once you the management is convinced that okay, we need to go for these kind of activities, then the next stage is that you talk about how we are going to take it up. So, the next stage is that you are talking about the process, what kind of processes you are going to adopt in order to understand that this coaching is going to be helpful and successful that to the employees in order to increase their performance, right. So, when you are going for coaching, obviously you first of all you identify the need for training or coaching what you call, right. Then you see that how we are going to make use of this coaching, right. So, you are using certain strategies that we will talk about. So, then you are going to see that you are going to design and develop a training program. As a part of it, you are going to see that who is going to coach employees, right. And then you have to see that how they are going to deliver, since it is a one to one basis or a one to group. So, you have to see that how coaches are going to help employees to improve their performance, and then finally, you are also going to see that yes, there is a better compatibility between coach and team member, especially in terms of their behavioral competencies, right. And also see that the coaches are technically competent in their functional skills, so that they are able to perform well and they are able to demonstrate those activities which they want clients to learn or the coaches to learn, right. And then you are going to use certain tools and other things to see that you are able to sustain this, in the sense that you are able to create an environment in the organization, so that coaching is going to be really successful and they are able to compete in a business environment, which is quite often changing and changing very fast as well. So, before we discuss about this, we are going to talk about the strategy, and here you are going to use a this same the process model, that how we go about it. So, first of all what we do, we identify the need for coaching, okay. And then need for coaching basically talks about why coaching is required, okay, convincing the top management, getting the support and resources for the top management, and then you are going to identify who need to be coached, right, those who are performing very poorly or those who are performing very well. So, you decide about that. Then at the next stage you are going to design and develop a coaching program. Then this is to be implemented. Then you are going to evaluate this coaching program. So, use the same process model which is used in other learning and development interventions. So, using this model, first of all you are going to see what would be your strategy to convince the top management, then you coming to design and develop a training program, identifying what kind of coaching would be required, who is going to coach, what is to be delivered, what would be the content of the coaching program, all this is part of this one. then ultimately the coaching would be delivered by the coaches who are appointed, and then once coaching is done, then you are going to evaluate. And then another important factor is that you make sure that you have a system of feedback in the process which is fed into all these areas. So, you have feedback at each and every stage to ensure that how coaching is done. So, feedback, the idea of feedback is basically monitor and monitor the progress of the coaching. And another important thing is that you also need to decide about the time frame within which the structured coaching activity is going to happen. So, that when this coaching takes place, you are able to monitor the progress and you will see that within a given time frame it is going to be successful, right. So, when we are talking about coaching, the idea, and while we are trying to link it with performance management, the idea is that we have to see that how it is going to help those who are at the helm of affairs, are they are concerned with the management of employee performance, they are able to link these activities and see that how it is going to help in improving the performance. Now, if you look at this process, this figure, you can see that how the person is helping another person to see that he is able to walk through this ladder and is able to improve his performance. Okay. So, it is very, very important to talk about these kind of things today, because coaching has been a very successful activities. So, when we start the coaching process, first of all what we do, we first look at the current performance of the individual, what he is doing, and once if you look at the performance data, you will be in a position to find out what is the performance record of the individual. Okay. So, this is the first step. So, once you look at the performance record, then you go for ensuring a better performance from the individual. So, in order to see that, what you are going to do? You are going to see that what would be the goals and objectives that you have set for the program, coaching program. Then you are going to deliver it, and once they are able to perform, or the employees are able to set new standards or have been able to improve their performance, you are going to link it with the reward. So, ultimately coaching is related to individual development, which relates to both two things, that is performance for the organization and better reward for the individual. If it is not well synchronized, then there will be issues. This coaching may not be effective, or even if they are performing well and if you are not rewarding them appropriately depending upon their needs and requirements, probably this program is not going to be very, very successful. So, what is your objective? Whether your objective is improving your performance beyond the set standards, right, or you want to see that the person who is not able to perform well, those who are performing very poorly, they are able to meet the expectations. So, you need to decide about it, whether you are really interested to improve the performance of those who have been able to achieve good performance and you want them to move to higher level, or you are identifying those who are not able to perform well, those who are poor performers, and then doing something for them in the name of the coaching, right. So, now if you look at this figure, what does this show? This shows that okay, there are certain expectations that you have, okay, and then expectations could be in terms of improving performance, right. Then you are going to observe coaches that okay, how it is to be done, right, or you are going to see that okay, what needs to be done. So, you have to identify the gap in the performance based on what was your expectations, or the expectations that have been set for you in terms of goals and standards, and then what your performance record is. So, you will be able to identify the level of performance based on the expected performance level and achieved performance level, right. So, based on that you are going to identify the gap, and then this gap is fed back to the system that okay, this is the gap in the performance which needs to be corrected, right, and then you give feedback to the employees that okay, how it is to be done. So, coaching could be one such of interventions, and then you also regularly need to monitor the performance to ensure that coaching is successful, right. So, idea here is something like this: you need to identify what does poor performance means, right. So, first of all you define what is the poor performance, right. Then once you are able to define poor performance in objective terms, then how are we going to respond to poor performance, right. So, when we are talking about gap analysis, this is basically is there, if there is a poor performance, then after analyzing that you are going to respond to the poor performance, that in what way you are going to see that this poor performance is corrected and employees are able to improve their performance. Then you are going to conduct a coaching analysis, okay, whether coaching is going to help this individual to improve his performance or not, right, because it is very important. Suppose you know that coaching is not the solution, then you have to think about some other intervention, right. Then you discuss it with the management, you discuss it with the stakeholders, HR managers, you discuss it with the employees concerned, see that in what way coaching is going to help to improve their performance, right. And then ultimately you are going to see that you are able to define whether the person is really performing well or not, right. So, you are using certain rating scales, right, you have performance standards, so you are going to compare it, right. See, it is like this. See, you have certain expectations in terms of performance, these expectations are related to performance standards. Say for example, if for a salesman it could be like selling 100 units, correct, per month, right. Then you are going to observe it whether it is able to achieve it or not, okay. And from this observation you find that he has been able to sell 80 units, right. Then you are going to identify the gap. It means that there are certain things which led to loss of this 20 units. It means that his performance is not up to the mark. Now, whether this performance which is not up to the mark, how are going to rate them in terms of performance? Say excellent, good, average, below average, bad. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, we are going to use these rating scales. This is a very objective measure. So, what you are going to do? You are going to see whether you are going to call it an average performance or below average performance. Suppose you think that his 100 is a good performance. So, if it is below 100, then it could be called this. If you think that it is an average performance, then it could be this. So, you need to define standards, and that is why when you define standards, you need a base. It could be in terms of an absolute base, or it could be in terms of relative base. Related to what, right? So, these are the two ways to define the standards. For example, if we define that standards, okay, that is in absolute terms, that is 4 means 100 and 3 means 80, it means that his performance is average, because you have already decided in absolute terms what his performance level is. Or another way to look at it, that when you are trying to define poor performance and you think that 4 is 100, then it is going to be 30, it means that it is average performance. So, he needs to improve either from here or from here, or it could be from here to here, right. So, defining poor performance is very good, and then when you are going to define them, you are going to define them either in absolute terms or in relative terms, right. So, you have to define poor performance. For example, whether you call it poor, average, good or excellent, it depends upon what is your standards, right, whether you go for a poor absolute performance standards or a poor performance, relative performance. Okay. So, performance is basically the specific agreed upon deviations from expected behaviors. So, when you say that okay, he is supposed to sell 100 units and if he has sold only 80 units, it means that he is deviated from the agreed behavior, right. It means that this shows that there is a lack of performance. Okay. And then you have some standard expected level of performance. So, you have a standard is say 100 units against which he is being compared, right. Then after comparing, you know that how well the person is performing, and when it comes to setting up the standards, okay, it is communicated beforehand to both the individual as well as his supervisor. So, that they know okay, this is the standard that I need to achieve in terms of performance, and that would be used as a criteria for evaluating my performance, right. So, how are we going to define deviant workplace behavior, right? What happens that people are not able to perform well. Sometimes that people engage in different kind of activities, they are not directing their behavior which could be called as goal directed, because when we are talking about poor performance or when we are talking about job performance as such, it depends upon a number of factors, what kind of task you are going to do, okay, and what kind of context you have. I think we have already talked about these things. So, because tasks we measure both the task performance and contextual performance, right. So, context is very very important, which comes in terms of support, environment, culture, leadership, resources and equipment, and task whether the person knows the task or not. So, where we are using one model which is known as job characteristics model, right. We look into the complexity, variety and these kind of factors, okay, when we are going to measure job performance, and context is basically related to what you call external, internal and external both, it could be, right, related to the internal environment, leadership, relationship, communication, external related to social cultural environment, right, because all of them are going to contribute effectively to your job performance, right. And when we are talking about deviating, it means that if you are not performing a goal directed behavior, okay, because it is linked with this one. If you are engaged in goal directed behavior, probably you will be able to your performance. If it is not, then probably you are deviating. Okay. So, there are two dimensions of this goal directed behavior. Okay. One is related to your learning orientation and the one related to your performance orientation, because both of them are going to contribute to your performance. When you engage in a goal directed behavior, in the process you go through certain learning experiences and you are able to perform your job well. Okay. And this goal directed behavior which is related to performance, okay, which is considered as your task performance, okay, which could be affected by factors like how complex the task is, how many varieties of tasks you are going to perform and these kind of things, right. So, if there is a deviation, then these deviations, okay, are detrimental and you will not be able to perform, and if there is deviation, then this leads to what you call poor performance. This deviations could be in different form. Okay. So, what we are going to discuss now is what are these deviations and what actually happens. Deviation could be in terms of how you work, whether you are working slowly or you are going leaving early, or it is something like there could be different examples that can be given. For example, you are engaged in counterproductive behaviors, okay. You are lying about the number of hours that you have worked, you are more interested to create damage, doing something that is against the norms of the organization, like involving those activities which could sabotage the life, property, equipment, these kind of things. You are also engaging in certain political behaviors, okay, in order to survive and grow instead of working for the job, right. So, manipulating, okay, showing biases, not working during the working hours, and then engage in those political activities, including participating in union activities and these kind of things. Though I am not saying that union activities are not good, but you need to ensure that it is not going to affect your performance as an individual, right. And then your personality characteristics, I mean you are engaged in these kind of activities either as supervisor or other individuals, right. Okay. So, if you are going to be engaged in these kind of activities, what will happen? You will not be able to achieve your performance, okay. And then we have to also find out why you engage in these kind of activities, deviant workplace behavior, because if you are going to engage in this kind of behavior, definitely it would lead to poor performance, right. Okay. So, deviance could be in terms of property, politics, production, or at the individual level also you are not doing those things which are supposed to be done by you. Okay. So, if you are engaging in these kind of activity, the result would be that you will not be able to perform well. So, is coaching is a solution or not? Now, if you look at this individual, what happens? He is so distressed because his performance is not good. So, now we need to decide about it, whether this person requires coaching or not, or such kind of people are going to be held by the coaching process or not. So, what we are going to consider that, okay, what are the causes for poor performance? Is it because the employee had deviated from the track? We have just discussed the reasons. It could be personal, it could be situational, it could be related to the organization also. Okay. So, you have to see that, yes, you try to find out what are the reasons because of which the employees have been not able to contribute to either his performance or the department performance, right. So, the idea is that once you are able to find out the reason, you have to see that in what way employees can be encouraged or motivated to perform well, right. And then you have to come out with a solution, okay, this is how we are going to do. So, basically the coaching is a process, okay, and through this process you try to help out the individual to ensure that he is able to perform well, right. And during this process, how do you go about it? How do you start this coaching? First of all, you discuss about the goals and objectives, okay, and then you see that whether the goals and objectives that has been set by the departments and the organization for the individuals or for the individuals, how they have been set, okay, whether the proper process has been drafted, whether all the stakeholders have been consulted or not, okay, whether it is realistic and achievable, whether it could be achieved within a given time frame or not. So, you look into all these processes related to the goal, because setting the goal is a very essential component, right, because everybody works for these goals in the organizations, because we are moved by targets, right, either in objective terms or in subjective terms. So, it is very, very important to look at the goal and see that whether you can go for making some kind of adjustments depending upon the context and the reality or the environment, right. So, you go for renegotiating the goals and objectives if that is required, right, for the individual. So, that coaching is going to help him to improve his performance, right, and then based on this renegotiation you work out an action plan for the individual, so that he is able to improve and help him out, and then you go for the coaching, design and implement a program for that individuals, follow it up to ensure that it is successful. So, when it comes to responding to poor performance, there are two major theories which have been discussed in the literature. They are known as causal attribution theory and fundamental attribution error. Now, if you look at these two theories, what they talk about, okay. So, if you look at the causal attribution theory, it suggests that we try to attribute the cause of a behavior either to internal factors or external factors. So, when we say internal factors, then we try to attribute it to yourself, right, that I am the cause, I may not be competent enough, and that is why I have not been able to perform well. Okay. So, you are basically try to attribute it to your knowledge, your skill and your attitude factors, provided you know about it, that is also important. So, it is related to your task performance, but if you are trying to attribute to the external factors, it means that no, you are not at fault, but probably the management or supervisor is not supportive, you are not able to get enough resources, right, you are not being helped and guided by your supervisors, right, or you are attributing simply to the external environmental factors, that the environment is not conducive or favorable. So, if you are talking about these kind of factors, definitely you are attributing to the external factors. Okay. For example, when you write an exam and if you pass it, okay, with flying colors, good grades, then what you say, that okay, I did work and I worked very hard, right. So, you are trying to attribute into internal factors, that okay, I am responsible for this, but if you do not pass and your marks are very bad, or if you fail, then you attribute to external factors. Okay. So, this is what we know as causal attribution. Who is the cause of the behavior, whether they are related to your internal environment, you, or external environment, right. Now, sometimes what happens related to this, we try to make an error, and this is known as fundamental attribution error. Irrespective of success and failures, you try to attribute it to yourself, though it may not be correct. For example, if you have not been able to perform well, okay, and when you discuss it with the supervisor, you say, so sorry sir, I am responsible, okay, though it not necessary that you are responsible for that poor performance, right. there could be other factors which could be overlooked by the supervisor. Okay. So, it is very important that you do not take everything onto yourself, you discuss it and decide who is responsible for the level of performance that is achieved by you, that is very important. So, make sure that whether you are making internal attribution or external attribution, it is correct, and you are not taking blame for everything, whether it is success or failures, to yourself. Okay. Now, what are the activities that is done through the coaching process? Okay. What coaches do basically? They try to give advice to you that how the things should be done. They also try to guide you in the process, okay, and they also provide you all the support that is required in terms of resources, in terms of equipments, in terms of technology. So, whatever support is required has to be given, and they also try to build confidence in you. So, that they try to see that okay, believe in yourself, so that, and yes, you are competent enough, you can do it, okay, and in the process they try to develop those competencies which is required for better performance, right. So, these are some of the functions, we will discuss it later again in detail, that how what kind of coaching skills would be required by the coaches to improve performance of the employees. So, what basically coaches do basically? They try to see that okay, this is the performance level and we move to the next level. So, they think about developing competencies. So, the level of competencies are defined and what kind of competency level is to be achieved, that is identified, and in the process they also communicate very effectively with all the coaches who are part of the process, okay, and another important job is to motivate them. So, not to say that during the coaching process you are bringing result or short term wins are there. So, you should always encourage them, keep on motivating them consistently and persist on that, so that it helps employees to grow and development. And look at the performance, keep on documentation, okay, because that will be able to show you that okay, you have reached from x to y, y to z. So, that would say that okay, this is how the performance is progressing, and during this coaching you give them regular feedback through showing, through demonstration and other activities, see that how the job is to be done. And if he has certain problems related to performance, you try to see that how it can be overcome. So, the idea here is to you are going to develop employee in terms of those competencies and behavior which would be required by him for effective performance. So, this is a type of coaching that is done. This is what we know as coaching style. So, how we go about coaching is, see, if you look at that, okay. So, either you are going to be task centered or people centered, right, then you are going to be more assertive or less assertive, right. So, if you are task centered and more assertive, basically you are a driver, you are very goal oriented and make sure that everything takes place as expected, right. If you are people oriented but assertive, then you have to try to persuade people, so that they go for it and try to achieve the goal. But if you are less assertive and task oriented or goal oriented, then you try to analyze the situation, see what needs to be done and this is what you should do, okay, without being much assertive, right. But if you are less assertive and people oriented, then it is not good, you become amiable, okay, and in that case you will not be able to achieve the goals. So, the best way to look at it, that either be task oriented or people oriented and then be assertive. Assertive means does not become aggressive, okay, saying firmly but in a very polite manner, and that is what assertiveness means. So, you say whatever you want to say, but in a very firm voice, okay, and stick to it and make sure that people go for it, right, and if they are not able to do it, you are going to help them in the process, right. Now, if you look at some of the critical success factors like clarity, okay, clarity in what is the need for the coaching and skill, because that is the first step in the process. What kind of skill would be required by the employees, okay, what kind of performance expectations you have, what kind of development you are looking for, right. Then look at the enabling conditions, that is very important, okay. It is very important that you assess the situation within which they are going to work. So, you look at do analysis of the environment, both internal, external, because that is going to help you to identify the conditions under which it is going to help the individual to perform well. So, identify both the barriers and the kind of support that would be required. So, provide the support system, make sure that these barriers are removed, right. It could be related to structure, it could be related to the culture, it could be related to the process, it could be related to the top management support, whatever it is. So, whatever barriers are there, make sure that it is removed. Then let us see that the coaches are committed to the goals and objectives, and also the coaches. It means together they decide that okay, this is the agreement among all the stakeholders including coaches, the clients and the HR managers, and you identify what kind of outcomes you are expecting, okay, what the indicators of the performance, how you are going to assess the data and in what way feedback would be given, right. And then you continuously work for improvement of the individuals, so that you can ensure the desired results, right. And if that happens, probably you will be more successful, which can be celebrated, right. And if you require certain adjustments to be made in the goals and objectives, then you go for it also, depending upon the conditions, right. And that is how we are going to proceed further. Okay. Thank you very much.